think about it. I don't know if you guys have a preference yet or not as far as what works. Like I said, you can do the prime factorization thing like this one. Hang on. Where you just make it into a bunch of numbers that are prime numbers, and then if you get a pair of them, you can bring that out front, and if you have a single one like this, you leave him underneath the square root. That's one version. Then the other version is try to find the biggest perfect square that divides into the number. So again, I don't know if you have a preference on that, but that's the two main ways you can get this done. All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple more examples. You like the first one here? This one here, you want to try a couple more of these like this? Yeah, we can do that. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple of those. All right, so let's do this one that way. This 250 here. All right. So something to write with here. Okay, so 250, we can definitely divide by 2, right? So then we have 2, and then 250 divided by 2 is 125. Okay, so in this case, 125 is not an even number, so we're done with 2. And I don't think 3 is going to work. By the way, I don't know if you know the hack for figuring out if something divides by 3. I mean, this is if you didn't have a calculator. Here we have 125, right? So what you would do is you'd add the individual digits together. So I got 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 5 is 8. So yeah, we're going to do 5. I just wanted to show you couldn't do 3. But yeah, good call, Chloe. So the point of the story is this. We can't divide 8 by 3, so then the whole number can't be divided by 3. But if you can add the digits up, it doesn't matter how many digits you have, and the number that you get here can be divided by 3, then the whole thing can be divided by 3. But Chloe said, let's divide this by 5. And I think that's a good call. Okay, so we divide by 5. So 5 quarters gives you $1.25. So then this is going to be 25. And then again, it gets a little easier as you go along. This is going to be 5 times 5. Okay, so then we write these here. So you're going to have 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. So we have 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, now we look for a pair of these that we can drag out. Well, we got a pair of 5s, right? So that means we can bring him out front here as a single 5. Now, we've got just a single 2 and a single 5. Can't do anything with those. But what we can do is we can multiply them together and keep them underneath the square root. So that becomes 5 times the square root of 10. And that's our answer. Okay? Questions on that one? All right, cool. Let's move on. Well, we already did this one, didn't we? We've done that one a couple times. So we're going to skip him. I think the answer is 6 square root of 3. Yeah, we've done that one quite a bit. All right, so the next one. Let's look at him. So the stuff around the square root, the only thing we can do here is 3 times 7, right? And that's it. And those two numbers aren't the same, so we don't have anybody paired up. So this one you can't do anything to. That's your answer right there. You're done. Does that make sense? So some of them are already done. You just have to kind of look for those. All right, so let's go ahead and try another one here. Whoa, what's this? Uh-oh. Now we've got variables in there. You kidding me with this? Actually, the variables are really easy to work with. The variables are actually easier to work with than the numbers. Okay, so it's not that bad. And we'll talk about how to do that here in a second. All right, so let's start with this guy. So we can divide by 2, right? So if you're not sure, let's go ahead and get our calculator involved here. Of course, I have to go find it since I had to restart my freaking computer. All right. So make it a little more usable size here. Come here, you. There we go. All right, so we got 98. And we divide by 2. That's 49. Isn't 49 a perfect square? Seven times 7, right? Okay, so then what we can do is we say, all right, I've got a pair of 7s, so I can move them out front. So I've got a 7. Then underneath here, I've got the square root of 2, because I've only got one of those. Okay? Now, here's the easy part. The exponent part is easy with the variable. So like I said, remember that they don't write it here, but the index on a square root is 2. Like for a cube root, they'll put a little 3 there. But for the square root, they just assume you know this, that it's a 2. Okay? But here's how this works. It's kind of like doing division. You say 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that number is the exponent on the outside, 4. Okay? Why does that work? Because if you did x to the 4th times x to the 4th, that's x to the 8th, right? This thing went right halfway decent. There we go. So I've got a pair of x to the 4th, so I could bring them out. So it's the same principle. But I think it's a little easier to think of as just division. Okay? So then that guy comes outside. There's no remainder, right? If you have a remainder, that stays under the house here, or in the house, okay? But in this case, we didn't. So this is our answer. Okay, you see how that happens? All right, so let's go ahead and check out the next guy. You'll get the hang of it here. The other way you could do it, I mean, you could do x to the 8th would be 8 x's in a row. Okay? So think of it that way. Just trying to have enough space. So that would be 8 x's in a row. Okay? And again, think of it this way. We could bring out them in pairs. There's one pair, so there's an x. Here's another pair, another x, another pair, another x, another pair, another x. 1, 2, 3, 4, x to the 4th. There it is. Scoop, there it is. All right. All right, so the next one. We start with the numbers. So we can divide by 2, right? So it's 2 times 100. Well, 100 is a perfect square, isn't it? It's 10 times 10. Beautiful. All right, so there's our numbers, right? So we got a pair of 10s. Could start to a poker hand, right? So we got a pair of 10s. So the 10s are going to come outside the house, right? Then inside the house, We've got a 2 by itself, so he stays. Okay. Now, again, look at this part. So remember, this is a 2. 2 goes into 3 one time, so that's x to the first, or just x. You don't have to write the first. I'm just demonstrating it for you here. 2 goes into 3 one time with 1 left over. So there's a remainder of 1. The remainder stays in the house. So this is our answer. Our answer is 10x times the square root of 2x. So remainders stay in the house. However many times it goes into it comes out front. So like over here, we had 2. We had 8 divided by 2 is 4. That number comes out. This one we had no remainder, so there's nobody inside. This one, 2 goes into 3 once. So that comes outside. Then we have a remainder of 1, and he stays inside. Questions? Okay. Okay, and just like anything, the more we practice these and the more we go over them, the better it gets. All right. So let's continue on. More variables. Yay. Okay. Here's what we do. So again, let's figure out this guy. So we've got 2 times 16. And 16 is a perfect square, right? That's 4 times 4. Okay. So the 2 4s can come out front. So they're out front. We've got a 2 that's going to stay inside. Okay. So now this next part, we say 2 goes into 4 2 times. So that's going to be x to the second. And no remainder, so nobody inside. Then we got 2 goes into 3 one time, so that's going to be y to the first, or just y, with a remainder of 1, so y stays under the house too. That's your answer. Questions? Starting to make sense? All right, so next one, of course, I got to throw a fraction in there. What's wrong with these guys, right? Okay, so here's the deal. Let's work with the fraction just on its own for a second. So instead of writing it like this, just writing it at all would be nice. So instead of writing it like that, you can write it this way. You can say the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. Those two are equal. So it's cool to do that. The reason that's kind of helpful here is the square root of 1 is just 1. And the square root of 2, or excuse me, square root of 4 is 2, giving away the answer again. So the square root of 1/4 is 1/2. So that means a 1/2 comes out front. And we have times 4x. All right, and now we do the 2 goes into 6 3 times. So that's another x to the third and no remainder. So we have nothing under the house, no square root at all this time. Cool. So then we just have to put a couple things together here. So 4 times 1/2, that's the same as saying 4 divided by 2. That's just 2, right? Then I've got x to the first and x to the third. We add our exponents. That's x to the fourth. So all that crazy gobbledygook there just equals 2x to the fourth. Done. All right. Still with us? All right, let's move on. Okay, what's going on here? They're multiplying. Guess what? Ain't no thing. You can turn this into 1 square root just by multiplying the stuff together. So 12 times 3 is 36. Okay. X to the first and x to the first is x to the second. Cool. 36, that's a perfect square, right? Isn't 36 a perfect square? Yes, no, maybe? Yep, 6 times 6. Beautiful. So then the square root of 36 is just 6. And remember the square root of x squared, 2 goes into 2 one time. So that's x to the first. No remainder. Ladies and gentlemen, there's our answer. More fun than you thought humans were allowed. So sometimes it's advantageous to go ahead and multiply these guys together, as we've just seen. All right. Let's continue on. Okay, so here's another one. Same kind of deal, right? All right. So let's go ahead and multiply together. So 2 times 26, that's going to be 52. Right? And then x to the 9th and x to the 6th is going to be x to the 15th. And all this stuff is around the square root. All right, so let's go ahead and work with the number. So we get 52. We can divide him by 2, right? We know that because we had that part right. And then that gives us 26. We can divide 26 by 2, right? And that leaves us 13. 13 is a prime number, so we can't do any more with that one. Okay? So then the rule to this is as long as we got a pair of them, they can come outside the box, right? Or outside the square root thing. So I've got 2 times 2, so that means the 2 comes out front. All right. And we still have a 13 on its own, so he's going to stay inside. All right. So now let's work with the exponents. So 2 will go into 15 7 times, right? So that means we're going to have an x to the 7th. So however many times it goes into here comes out front. And we are going to have a remainder of 1, correct? So that means 1x has to stay under the house. That's our guy. Okay. Questions on that one? Cool. All right. So I'm trying to fix something here. All right, cool. So let's try another one. So this one says 27 and 6. Okay. So we can multiply these together, or we can break it down as is right now. Just depends on how you feel about it. Let's try one that way, see if you guys like it. If you don't, we'll go back to the other. So 27, we can't divide by 2, right? Because it's not an even number. So we have to divide by 3. So let's do the 27. So that gives me a 3, right? If we go this way, it gives me a 9. And 9 is 3 times 3. All right, so there's that guy. Now remember, we're multiplying these together, so we could put all these guys together. So 6 is just going to be 2 times 3. All right, so let's check it out. Well, what do we got here? Different color would be good. So we've got 1. There's a pair of 3s, right? So 3 can come outside. Here's another pair of 3s. So another 3 can come outside. And then we've got this 2 by himself. So that guy stays there, right? Okay, so then check this out. M to the first. Well, it's just a square root of m. We can't do anything with him. I'm going to leave him in the house. Okay. Over here, I've got 2 goes into 20 10 times, right? So that's going to be an m to the 10th on the outside. So the last thing I need to do is just put these two guys together. 3 times 3 is 9. We have m to the 10th, and then the square root of 2m. That's our boy. Now, we could have multiplied that together, and it still would have worked. But if you prefer it this way, because the numbers start off smaller, right? So they're a little easier to put into that format. Okay? Questions on that one? Okay, we'll try a couple more here, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so you want to do this one individually, or you want to multiply them first? Your call. You want to multiply them? Okay. We can do that. So we do 2 times 25. It's okay, I can't spell either. That's why I do math. 2 times 25 is 50. All right. Then I've got x to the third and x squared. That's going to be x to the fifth. Why won't this right? There we go. And then finally just a y. Okay. So there we go. All right, so we got the 50. What can we divide 50 by? Pick a number, it all works out. $10. Okay. So that's 10 times 5. And what can we divide 10 by? Five again. That's 5 times 2, right? Cool. All right, so we know the rules. Can't leave the house unless you're with a partner, right? Got to leave in pairs. So here we've got a 5 and a 5. So the 5s can leave the house. So they come out front, right? And the 2 is by himself, so he's got to stay home. It's a safety thing. You know, he's by himself, so he's got to stay home. Okay. So then we go ahead and do the exponents, which is easy, right? So 5 goes into 2 times. That means we bring an x to the second out front. Cool. And we have a remainder of 1. So 1x stays in the house. Okay. And then y to the first, we can't bring him out because he's already just by himself, right? So he stays in the house too. That's our answer. Okay. So remember with the x's, that would be 5 of them in a row. Right? And then we could pair them up. And we do have one extra one, but we can pair them up some, right? So there's one pair, so that's an x. Here's another pair, that's another x. X times x is x squared, right? That's this guy. Then we have a single x left, so he stays in the house right there. Capiche? Fabulous. Let's go and check out another one. All right. So do we want to multiply again? We can do that. I mean, it's cool. So we do 9 times 18. What is that? So we clear it. 9 times 18. That's 162. Exciting. So 162. Then we've got x to the 9th and x to the 3rd is x to the 12th. Okay. The little dot's driving me nuts. Makes it look like it's 1 times 2 and it's not. There we go. Okay. All right, so again, the tough part is working with the number. It usually tends to be the tough part. All right, so probably need our calculator for this. So we can definitely divide by 2, correct? So if we do that, our calculator up here, 162 divided by 2 is 81. Oh, that's cool. Because 81 is a perfect square, isn't it? It's 9 times 9. Well, that worked out. So we have the 2 9s. We can bring them out front, right? So we have a 9 out front. Then inside, we've got, so we got the 2 9s. They leave the house in a pair, right? 2 stays here. And then we've got 12 divided by 2 is 6. So that's an x to the 6th on the outside and no remainder. So no x's under the house. That's our answer. Cool. All right, last one. All right, let's maybe try this one separately. Let's see how that works. All right, so this part, we're going to have, we can divide by 2, and we get 16. 16 is a perfect square, right? It's 4 times 4. So the first fraction here, we're going to have 4 on the outside and a 2 on the inside. And this is just a single x, so he's going to stay on the inside as well. So that's our first guy. So let's look at our second guy here. Let's do 72 over here, just so we get a little room. We can divide by 2. 72 divided by 2 is 36. Ah, very cool. 36 is another perfect square, right? Because it's 6 times 6. So for the second fraction, not fraction, but radical, we got 2 6s, right? Bring them out front. So we got a 6 out front. We got another 2 on the inside, right? So then this is going to be square root of 2, right? And then this one here, we take 2 goes into 18 9 times. So this will be x to the 9th. All right, so we can multiply these guys together, right? So we do this, we've got 24, and we got an x to the 9th, bring him along for the ride. And then on the inside, we're going to have the square root of 2 times 2, that's 4, and x. Well, what's the square root of 4? What is the square root of 4? Yeah, it's just 2, right? So that means another 2 can come outside. So this is going to be 24 times 2, that's going to be 48. Then we still have the x to the 9th. And then we just have 1x under the square root. Now, we could have noticed this earlier when we were doing our stuff because we said, look here, since we're going to multiply these guys together, I've got a 2 here and a 2 here. That's a pair of 2's. So a 2 could have come out front. So we could have done that a little earlier, but that's okay because we looked at it and we said, well, wait a minute, the square root of 4 is 2, so I could bring him out. So he just became a 2, and then we multiplied that by the 24, we got the 48, and bring the rest of the stuff along for the ride. Cool? All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging in there after a fairly rocky start. But we got a lot accomplished today, which is cool. All right, so we'll probably talk about this stuff a little bit tomorrow. And hey, guess what? It's Thursday already. So class time's almost over for you guys. All right, so I'm going to shut down the recording, and hopefully we'll see y'all tomorrow.